time is here. Shane and I'll be loud and clear. Pacific vibes, we bring the heat. AI agents can't be beat. AI agents hour, let's go. News and guests, the big show. Solving problems, we do it live. Stay informed, it's a vibe. Building agents that work for you. Making moves, we see it through. Every week, a brand new show. Tag along and watch your knowledge grow. AI agents hour, let's go. News and guests, the big show. Answering questions, we arrive. Every Monday, come alive. We want reviews, but only if it's a 5. We share the drama, we got the drive. Stay in the loop, it's the place to be. Shane and I'll be setting you free. Agents Hour, here to stay. Tune in Mondays, make your day. From the news to the problem solved. AI world, get involved.
This is Agents Hour with Shane Thomas and Abby Iyer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Agents Hour. I'm Shane. I'm here with Abby. Where you at, Abby?
What's up? Currently at Nvidia GTC.
And that's the first thing we're going to talk about today. But before we do, thanks for joining us if you are watching. If you are watching this, you might be seeing it live. And if so, please use the chat on YouTube, X, LinkedIn, wherever you might be watching, and interact. We'll pull a lot of the questions up, comments up, and talk about it. So it's a live show. Please interact. And if you are so inclined, subscribe on YouTube. We like that. So when did you get in, Abby? Tell us about the conference. Where's it located?
Yeah, so I'm currently here in San Jose. Got in last night. They pretty much closed down the downtown area here. It's at the convention center, convention center. And it's a huge, there's just so many things going on. They have like expo halls, they have talks going on. There's all these hotels within the convention center that are full of people. So it's pretty cool. There's a merch store, which is tight. And they have they set up like a nice park area for people to watch all the talks and stuff. So yeah, you can see Ugly Sweater right there and the merch store. So it's been pretty cool so far. The keynote was very good.
Was it Jensen the keynote?
Jensen was the keynote. Kind of started off he just started out making this joke that this is a tech conference, yet there are people standing in line for so long, getting here early, like it's like a concert, and people are super hyped. And then they have, a bunch of companies sponsoring this thing. There's hundreds of companies. But the keynote was super interesting. It's pretty much NVIDIA is going to double down on AI, of course. And like the data centers that they're kind of focusing on are going to produce more performance per wattage. And essentially they're trying to create more avenues for people to burn more tokens. And that's really like the whole thing. It was like last phase was to enable the burning of tokens. Now they want to burn 100x more. So that's pretty much all their kind of strategy.
Sounds like efficiency and scale.
Yeah, they're trying to just scale this thing out. I think a couple key points from the keynote that I can go through. So one is about performance. Two is about the amount of demand they're getting. So NVIDIA traditionally had two products, which is CUDA, which is the one they've been working on. It's like the 20th anniversary of CUDA this year. So they've been working on that for 20 years. That's crazy. Who knew when I was playing freaking Counter-Strike, where we'd all back then, we'd all be here. And then the second thing they've been working on is like their systems platform. And the last thing that they're unveiling is what's called the AI factories. So it's just things that are going to help pretty much AI products. Along with that, like they are going to bring OpenAI to AWS. And he was saying that, I think we all know that there's so much compute being used, and OpenAI is very compute constrained. So NVIDIA is going to help getting them into AWS infrastructure. So that should be good news for any of the OpenAI fans. Um, and then there's going to be a bunch of specific systems for different industries. They're trying to I think they pretty much said that you can't really have one size fits them all. So they're going to be doing different tech for specific verticals, which is cool because we knew kind of verticalized things were the way, So that's a lot there. And the last thing I'll say is he loves talking about Moore's law. Um, and so he thinks that, that law is running out of steam and accelerating computing allows us to jump past it. And there was a lot of callbacks in his talk about how, you know, they're just surpassing everything they thought. So plus that guy's a rock star, dude. He's just really good at speaking. So that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine he's had a lot of practice over the last couple of years. But my
Yeah.
question, this is the important one. Does the merch sell NVIDIA logoed leather jackets? Because I feel like that's
Uh,
his swag, right?
they do. They have like
Of
different
course
types
they
of
do.
jackets, pullovers.
Of course they do.
It's super cool, and it's like $100 a shirt or something. It's like wild prices.
Yeah. That's awesome. So tell us, I guess, why are you there? How did you get pulled into the conference?
Yeah, so our friends at Code Rabbit have a expo spot here, and they're asked me if I could demo both Mastra code and Mastra using the Nematron models. And we're going to, I have to demo it later today. And if they like it, it'll be shown on the Wednesday live stream, uh, which is, it's not a live stream. It's weird because it's like a pre-recorded thing that they will show during the live stream. So I was thinking, I've never used the Nematron models, so I have a lot of opinions now. Some not so good, some pretty good. But I can show a demo of what I built. And sorry if it's kind of busy around here, but
You're
let
coming
me,
at us live from the conference, so
I'm live, yeah.
So the
Uh,
audio, if you are watching this, the audio is not as good as you would normally like it, but you know, better to have the show and deal with a little bit of audio issues
yeah.
from the conference. We're bringing the conference to you.
So let me show what I built. So a couple things. Nematron 3 is like the newest model. You can get it on Open Router for free right now. So if you're trying to try things out, just go on Open Router. It's free. It's available. When I was looking at the conference schedule, there was like 954 sessions. Some are like tutorials, some are talks. And if you're coming to this blind, how do you know what to do? Because I don't even know which ones to go to. So I was thinking like maybe I can make an agent that helps me to figure this out, plan an itinerary, and use their models to do so. So built a little agent called Nemo. So this is just like an entry point. What's cool is I wanted to make it. Not everyone here is like me, so I'm gonna just some information about myself. I'm a CTO, Mastra, developer tools. I want to talk. I want to. I'm interested in OpenClaw. I'm interested in agents, CUDA, etc. And I'm advanced. So let's launch the advisor. So I had a previous conversation. Let's just kill that. So this is using Mastra to its fullest. Couple things I use Mastra code to scrape all the session details. So here you can see all the different events that are going on here. So the OpenClaw one, that's cool. But also there's 35 after parties and happy hours and
Oh,
stuff. So
all
I
right.
scraped all those too. So there's Tailscale has a pregame that was yesterday, and there's a bunch of happy hours today, and the list goes on. So using this model and using all of Monster's primitives, we built an agent to help us do this. So let's just see what sessions are about OpenClaw because I love that. And I'm using the Minimatron Nano model, which is very fast, actually, pretty good. And so it's saying like, okay, today there's a OpenClaw thing at 3. There's a panel about it, the safety of OpenClaw. This one, next one is how to build safe and secure long-running agents. I'm actually going to attend that one because that sounds very interesting. And but here's the thing, I didn't know about the session until I started playing with this because I wanted, like, in my persona, it did all that stuff. So um, can you plan out my Tuesday session schedule as well as the parties? And we have 2 models here, the Super 120B. I'll tell you that one's trash. It doesn't work. It doesn't write TypeScript very well. Also, it doesn't do tool calls very well. But the Nano is pretty good. And so you can see that it's searching the different things. Also, one thing I noticed is it's very slow, just in general. That could be an open router thing, but that could also just be a thing. The reason this first one was so fast is because I have observational memory. So I've already asked that question before. So it knows what is going on. So these are observations happening. You can see all the message windows moving. So these are all the relevant things on Tuesday. Let's do, okay, add it to my itinerary. Can't you see, like, it just takes a long time to make moves.
Yeah.
But it's doing its thing though. And I was told that it's a harness problem, which is why they have this Memo claw, because with these models, the reasoning tokens are not in the format that we expect. So you actually have to do some harness stuff to get all the data out from the raw API requests. I'm just using OpenRouter, so I'm doing what we usually do, but there's a lot of data missing because it's not in the same standard. So if you use this model with OpenAI compatible, you're screwed. You have to do something that is little magic under the hood.
So are you using the OpenAI compatible APIs in this demo?
I'm using Mastra model router with OpenRouter. So I just did whatever we do. Under the hood, we use OpenRouter API. So yeah, this made my itinerary, which I thought would show up in the plan, but this is my itinerary. Oh, it's still running. That's why. I don't know why it's still running, but
And so
yeah.
you
So it
just
add these things.
so you just like created this front end. It's a Mastra agent you're chatting with, running.
Yeah.
Yeah, using model router.
Yeah. I can show some more. Want to show the code off? Let's stop sharing this, and let's open up the code. Cool. Oh wow. Okay, so you're seeing superset right now.
Yep.
I added to, man, I always hate when that happens. I added to Mastra code the Nemo pack. So this is all the NVIDIA models that came out. I'm gonna activate this pack just for demo purposes. And let's ask them, can you deep research the current code base and tell me how it was built? I am currently on a live stream with my bestie Shane, and I'm at NVIDIA. Make no mistakes. And you're gonna see how slow this thing is too. It's not, that's my only contention with it is it's really slow. But you
Well,
can run
what's
this on
this?
your computer.
And which model is this?
This is Nemotron Nano 12B.
12B. So it's pretty small.
It's really small. Yeah. If we tried, I'll do a demo with the Super in a second here. See, the only reason this was fast though is because it has context from observational memory. It didn't do any tool calls because it already knows based on what would happen. So yeah, front end was a Vite app, built in React, cool. Back end, Mastra and Open Router. And then with some technical debt we have to solve, sure. I deployed this to Railway. So maybe I could, oops, sorry. I'll post it in the chat if you all want to play with this app because I hosted it on Railway so anyone can look at it. It has NVIDIA branding, all that stuff, cool. let's change this model. This one, let's edit it. I'm gonna change the build mode to Open Router Nvidia the Super, which I don't believe is an actual model listed here. So let me go find out what that is. I think I have it somewhere in this app already. This is our agent. So it's just pretty much big ass system prompt on how to look for things. Let's look at where the models are. That's the free one. And search files. Open. Oh, these are actual files. Search. My bad. I forget what this thing is. Let me look it up on Open Router real quick. Give me 1 second.
So it's not
Nope.
in Mastra's model router.
Not yet. Video. This one, super free. Like that. Cool. Go back. You can always add it even if it doesn't exist. All right, so now build mode is on the super model and the plan, and
You want to hide the Riverside window, maybe, if you can? Yeah. I think you
where?
can
Oh,
just,
this
I
thing.
think you can
Oh,
just
I'm looking at
exit.
myself.
Yeah. There we go. That's
Ah,
better.
done. Cool. So we have that, and let's save it, and then let's activate it. Okay, cool. So now I'm on super, and let's see how terrible this thing is. How does the Mastra agent handle the itinerary? It's gonna take a while, but just to show you how slow this thing is. Well, it's once again observational memory help. Maybe I should do a new thread. Let's do that. Let me do a new thread. Deep research the code base and tell me what the architecture is. Hey, maybe it's working fast because I'm here.
You're in the right place.
Yeah, I'm in the belly of the
sped it
beast.
up. Maybe for the conference they sped it up.
Yeah.
Like we got to put some more resources behind this thing.
Yeah,
People are
yesterday I was
actually-
super frustrated with it. Also, it doesn't tell you what it's thinking. It just does stuff. Which we saw with like Codex 5.3. Similar. Honestly, it's actually moving quite fast today, which is good. But
Yeah, maybe they needed to throw some more GPUs at it.
yeah.
I wonder
and
if
then-
I wonder if Open Router just like maybe needed to do something on their side to like speed it up a bit.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, people are using these now, because of
Yeah.
the conference.
Yeah, that's pretty much the star of the show for the
Yeah,
conference.
That's cool.
Yeah. So
So
I don't know. This is pretty boring now, but like it's doing its thing.
Yeah, so you have I guess maybe post that app if people are watching
Yeah,
and
let
they
me
want to
do
click
that.
around. I don't know how long it'll be up for until your credits run out.
Yeah.
But don't use
Just
all the
stop
credits.
sharing.
But that's cool. So you built an example that uses the Nematron models with the Mastra agent. You're using the Nematron models in Mastra code.
Yep.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed that it makes it on the NVIDIA live stream then.
I'm open, so it's pretty sick. So I would assume so. And let me post this in the chat for y'all. There you go. Burn my tokens, y'all. Burn them. They're free.
There it is. All right. Cool. Well, for those that are just joining, Hobby's at the Nvidia GTC Conf. He gave us a quick update, talked about the keynote, showed a demo that he is showing and hoping is going to be on the Nvidia live stream on Wednesday. But thanks to Code Rabbit for the invite.
Yeah. Thanks to
And
Code
with
Rabbit
that,
right here.
yeah. And with that, should we move to bringing on our guest?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so I will give the guest, first we'll bring him on, then I'll give an intro. All right, Ryan, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on Agent Hour.
Yeah, so Ryan is an engineer here at Mastra, working on a ton of different things, but recently been working on Mastra Studio Auth. So to kind of set the stage, and then I'll turn it over to you, Ryan. We kept, when we first built Studio, it was kind of just a local playground. We actually called it Playground originally. It was just for developers who were working with Mastra to be able to not have to spin up a UI to test their agents and their workflows. But over time, we've been adding more and more to it. And eventually we got to the point where people were asking, how do I share this with others on my team? Maybe those people are PMs or subject matter experts that are a little less technical. Maybe it's just the ability to share it with other engineers so they don't have to download and run it locally. And with that, obviously, came the need for, okay, now how do I control what users can do once you've added all these features into this, Mastra Studio? So I think that sets the stage, Ryan, but maybe tell us a little bit about what it is and, what you've been doing with it.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely set the stage. I think everybody kind of knows auth and why it's necessary, especially with your agents, that they are backed by tokens, and tokens cost money. So you don't want to just have that exposed to anybody on the open internet, especially if your agent goes viral, which we all want to happen. So don't want that stuff to get leaked, or just like Abi's demo that he just sent out on Railway. You could probably use some Studio Auth behind that, but let's see. I do want to kind of mention about our current cloud and how we don't have much auth around there, and how we can use Studio Auth as kind of the injection point of that deployment. So I'll pull up some code to show what the Studio looks like currently. Let's see. So here we are in just the Mastra demo app, and here's what it looks like currently. There's no auth set up, and that just allows you to go to your server and to your studio, and you can, sorry about that, see all of your agents. And then with a simple command, you can add in just token-based auth. So now that we have auth enabled, you can no longer see your agents, but if you send in the token, you should be able to view your agent, and as well as if you go to the studio, see a familiar sign-in page, and here I can just log in with whatever email and that same token to gain access to the studio. That's a simple way to add just token-based authorization if you're developing locally. And we do have some providers baked in, like WorkOS is right here. Yeah. There we go. That should be a little easier to see. So once you have authorization, we have viewer and admin roles, but once you're authenticated, there's just like, you can do everything. So that begs in, makes you add in auth-z. Where is it? This just needs to be refreshed. So once you have RBAC in, you can map roles from 2 different permissions, and all of these permissions get generated from the actual handlers and the routes. So we have 80 different permissions that get auto-generated from, and then you can use different star patterns to say, I want to give read access to everything, or just give agent access, etc. So an extensive list of those permissions. So now when we spin up this example, I'm no longer signed in, but I can sign in with my Google SSO. Join any organization I need to. And now inside of my capability, inside of the network request, you can see we have this capabilities endpoint that says I'm an admin and I have star permissions to do anything here. And then if I come in and I want to say like, hello, and of course all this should work as we need to. If I want to just come in here and say, that, okay, now you only have read permissions. A little hot reload there, but yeah, it doesn't have access to execute this agent anymore.
Nice. So now you can't actually chat with it, but because you just simply change the permission for that role.
Correct. Yeah.
Nice.
Check this. Sorry for all the jumping around there. Let's see.
Cool. That seems pretty straightforward, pretty simple to get started with.
Definitely. Yeah, the doc should be all set up and streamlined. There's just 2 lines to add in, auth and then RBAC, and everything gets set up from there.
So, typically there's been a lot of confusion on how to lock down your agents and stuff. But is it because, most of these things are happening over HTTP, so there's nothing agentic about auth, right? It's just the same old stuff.
Yeah, it's exactly right. It's the same old stuff. I think the only thing that gets a little hairy is maybe tool calls and like being able to say what agent has access to what. Fine-grained stuff and ACL starts to get a little hairy as well. But that's a lot of just configuration. That's also nothing new. That's been an issue in the web in general.
Yeah, it's like a slightly different framing of the same problem.
Yeah.
And this is different than agentic auth, right? Because, you're exposing this through the Mastra server and people are interacting it with the application. And so that's like the context of a human logged in. But, do we have plans to do anything more than that, Ryan?
Yeah, definitely. I think with agents now having the capabilities to actually interact and do things autonomously on your behalf, you want to have some sort of logging, so auditability of what these agents are doing on your own system. So being able to and then say like, here is this current agent, and does he have access to that tool? So those audit logs are definitely in the works, and using different providers like WorkOS, we can feed that back into whatever other systems you're currently using.
Yeah, this is something that I think comes up as teams get past, we have a basic agent, maybe in production or maybe getting close to production, and they start to think about, okay, we need to think of some of the ramifications of this and what does this actually mean? And then especially the larger orgs that we talk to start to really have to think through these problems a bit more and figure out, okay, how do we scope the auth in the right way, and whether it's human or the agent, and how do we make sure that the agent's doing the right thing, and then know what happened in the case that it doesn't.
Yeah. all the auth providers are not only getting into essentially audit logs, invite like teams and users and multi OAuth different providers and stuff, but they're all starting to get into OAuth too. So like, how do you authenticate your agent to then do that? But within an application like Mastra, it's really just the request context being fulfilled, right? Like, for example, for us, we are extracting tokens, we're adding it to the request context, and then that thing is getting propagated down. And then Mastra itself has request context for tools and execution, where now you have the user context wherever you need to go, or agent context or whatever. So you still have to write code there, like to protect yourself. It's not like you just magically protect yourself, because your tool call still needs to check, like, hey, does this user or does this resource still have access to whatever the tool is going to do? So this is plumbing, but it still means you still have to like think about your application securely.
Yeah, the point about the plumbing too, the observability side of knowing this is what the agent did and why did they gain access to this, and knowing the thinking behind that and the rationale of, okay, this is how they got to this point where they wanted to access this tool. Do they actually need that access or not? And provision it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which providers do you support, Ryan?
Out of the box, we support WorkOS, auth, Supabase, Firebase, and Clerk. And we have open PRs for GitHub and a multitude of others.
It's
Cool.
super easy to add one, right? You just extend the class and get to business.
Exactly. Yeah. The authorization is super simple, or authentication is super simple. You just get a token and exchange it for some user, and then authorization gets a little bit harder, especially if you want to implement some SSO. But there's tons of patterns and examples already that we've implemented. And then Opus is pretty good at just, you say, hey, use this example, this provider, here's some docs, and it usually does about 90%.
So if you need an auth provider, PRs are welcome. All right. Well, Ryan, thanks for coming on the show, talking a little bit about Mastra Studio Auth. We're going to be announcing it more broadly throughout this week. We've had Auth for a while, but this is, I think, the right form factor, and it bakes into Studio really nicely. And so I think we've kind of been building on things we've been working on for a while, but this feels like we finally got it, mostly right. Like I'm sure we'll always change things, right? But I think this is, in this form, it feels like people can really start to use it, especially if you ever had a situation where you want others on your team to collaborate on agents, test agents together, be able to share that context around with your team. And it's awesome that it's now just baked into Mastra Studio.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for having me, everybody. Please submit your PRs, and I'll chat with you on GitHub.
Yeah, dude. Peace.
All right, Ryan. See ya. All right. Should we keep moving?
Let's keep moving.
All right. Next up, we have the news.
And boy.
All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Agents Hour. I'm Shane. I'm here with Abby. If you're just joining us, Abby's at the Nvidia GTC Conf. We talked about Mastra Studio Auth, but now we're going to do the same thing we do every week, and we're going to go through the news. So this week was actually, there's always some drama, but it was kind of calm, I thought.
Yeah, it was high drama, low everything else.
Yeah, like there wasn't any one big announcement. I think we'll actually be able to get through this. We always talk that we need to get through the news in a half an hour, and sometimes that's impossible because it seems like the pace is accelerating. There's so much going on. But this week, I think we can do it. I think we can get through this in like 20 minutes. Maybe 25. We'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see.
All right. The drama is juicy today, so we'll see.
The drama is juicy. So let's get chatting. Here's a little preview. Let's get into it. This was RentaHuman. I don't know how to explain it other than last week came across that breaking new startup RentaHuman allows AI agents to rent humans to perform tasks they cannot physically perform themselves. And then of
This is
course,
amazing.
yeah, and then of course there was some notes, some notes on X that was written in according to investigation, no job has been arranged through RentaHuman yet. So there's some caveats here, but this got a ton of views. Obviously, this sparked some controversy, which is, wait, why would an agent need to rent a human to do something? And what would these tasks be?
Yeah, there's a similar thing called human MCP, which allows you to make tool calls to then get someone for a task like this. This idea is really good. You know why? Because right now, all these long running tasks are coding tasks, right? But imagine a world where, if you've ever used droid missions or Ralph loops or whatever, you're doing all this work and there's some human in the loop, but not really. Definitely in droid there is, like droid missions have human in the loop. But if you wanted to go do a task, like let me set the stage here. If I wanted to have an agent sell my house, right? You could do a lot of the digital stuff. And I think there's a story about this, but like if you wanted to sell my house, there's like so many things that are digital, but it has to cross the chasm into the real world at some point. And so that's where you will need some type of human extension. And this is a great idea if it can work. It's like a task rabbit essentially, but it has to have different levels of quality in terms of who you're going to get for what.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked into this exact platform to see what kind of tasks they are even allegedly adding that you could do. But if you think about this simple scenario, if I actually had an AI assistant on my computer or I built one or whatever, and I asked it to order me some food and it orders through DoorDash, it's almost doing that same thing, right? Like a robot is not delivering that food. There's a human on the other end, a dasher, right? That's going to DoorDash my food to me. Did my agent just rent a human for that task? Well, kind of through a service. Now, I guess this thing is just maybe like trying to make that process easier and making it more explicit that, hey, your AI agents can tap into humans that are maybe can do work for it. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I think that the idea of if you have agents that are working for you, of course those agents are going to they can't do everything. They need to get into the physical world, and there are people there that might be able to do that. So I don't know if this exact platform will work, but obviously this idea at some level is going to exist, whether it's using existing tools and providers and agents just call into those tools with MCP. Like you can think of like a legal service for selling your house, right? Like a human's might do some of that work, have to actually go to the courthouse and get the papers or something, right? Depending on what the laws are of wherever you live. So I don't know if it's going to be a consolidated platform like this or if different existing platforms will have MCPs or
Yeah.
APIs. Like who knows? But this is probably going to exist.
Yeah, like some of the services you can do on RentaHuman are video and photography, legal services, research services. Some other interesting one, delivery and errands. That's even good. Pet care, writing, physically writing, I guess. And like verification, like mystery shopping, recruiting, hiring, stuff like that. So it is pretty interesting. I just don't see it. I don't see the vision all put together. I see like all the pieces, but I don't see how it flows yet.
Yeah, I don't think we're quite there yet.
Yeah.
All right. Another topic. Is MCP dead? So the co-founder and CTO of Perplexity just said internally at Perplexity that they're moving away from MCPs and just using APIs and CLIs. And we've been seeing this more and more, people saying like CLI is all you need, APIs are all you need. You don't need an MCP. What do you think of this?
I think the writing, this has kind of been brewing for the last couple of weeks. We covered last week that when we were at the Code Rabbit office, we were covering that, hey, like more people are making CLIs. Like if you can discover CLIs, then you just do -- help and your agent knows what to do. You don't need MCP, you don't need a server for it. And I think this is just more pushing that narrative forward for sure. But as always, there's a ton of people on the other end, right? Like I know David is definitely against this from Sentry and some other folks as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's kind of a split, right? There's this idea that, okay, you have an MCP client that connects to a server, you list the tools, maybe you specify what tools are available to the agent, and you have that control, right? But you've had to now predefine all these different tools, which basically just wrap to an API somewhere, right? It's just like you got this protocol that sits between an API and your agent being able to call that API. So the other option is you just give them that agent an SDK, does the same thing. It's SDK just basically wraps that API. That's all it usually does. Or you give them the ability, the API docs, and let them do it themselves in some kind of like code mode or whatever. Or you give them a sandbox and say like, oh, here's the CLI, or let them discover the CLI and just use that. I mean, I guess the question is just, I think we're seeing a lot of push for agents have to run in a sandbox. They need to be able to execute bash or CLI commands. And I don't think that's always the case. I think it's a
Yeah.
little bit, I think everyone wants to like, here's the new tool. Sandboxes are the thing. Everything needs to run in a sandbox, has to be, but give the agent all the tools they need. You also give them a wide surface area to make more mistakes, right? So I don't think it's everything like it's one or the other. I think there's room for both these things.
Dude, I'm starting to. What's brewing is like we talk crap about big eval, and now we are in the age of big sandbox.
I was just gonna
We're
say,
in the age of
dude, you're gonna say big sandbox, aren't you? All right,
yeah.
we're
We're in the age of
it's
big
big
sandbox.
sandbox, and
Yeah.
it's everyone trying to build their own version of your agent has to be in a environment that can write and run code. So you should
Yeah.
do it in our environment that lets you write and run code.
Yeah. You
Okay.
have to use it. You have to use
Yeah.
CLIs. You have to. People don't know you can
Yeah.
run a CLI programmatically too. So it's like, all right, bro, chill.
Yeah. I mean, or just, here's the thing. If your agent has scoped tools, it really doesn't have to run in a sandbox. It can run anywhere. It can run in a serverless function, I don't think that necessarily has to change. I don't think people saying everything has to run in a sandbox is true.
Yeah.
But continuing on this, official Chrome MCP support is apparently coming, which is, I don't think MCP is dead if you can use MCP to control your Chrome browser, right?
Yeah.
Give your agent access to the Chrome MCP, and now your agent can control a browser window.
Yeah, this is in beta right now too, so you could use it. And it's just Chrome itself is MCP.
Yeah, which is, you don't need any extra browser tools if the browser itself just has its own MCP server you can connect to.
Which is kind of crazy, right? Like that's pretty sick.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of does, assuming it works, disrupts a bunch of like browser tool companies that, and again, this is only with one browser, but it's the most common browser, right? And if you can just give the agent a browser with an MCP.
Yeah, especially if you're just running on your own machine, just let it rip.
Yeah, I am curious on how well it works compared to some of the other tools that have been around for a while, but it is very interesting. I mean, we've been thinking about how do we just connect Mastra code to this and let it rip, So TLDR, I don't think MCP is dead. I think it maybe is a little bit more niche. We also saw like earlier, we had the same conversation as MCP dead when it's agent skills. Like, is skills going to kill MCP? And I think what we were realizing is they maybe serve different purposes. Maybe it really turns MCP into, I think the MCP spec wanted to be very broad. And what we're learning is really MCP is going to turn out to be just a spec for tools.
Yeah, 100%.
And now we're seeing maybe it's a bit more niche in what tools, because you can use CLIs in some cases, you can use just the API. So I think in much the same way that everything, when you like at one point, everything was RAG, you had to RAG on everything you needed a vector DB. And then it was like, well, no, RAG isn't dead, but it's like this component. You still use it sometimes, but you don't always need it. I think MCP is going to be the same way. I know a ton of companies are still using MCP to share tools around, like internally across different teams. So it is becoming a standard at larger companies that they're using MCP.
yeah, like skills were thought to replace it. But I think if you think of MCP just for the tool layer, then you know that it's a distinction, you know. CLIs coming in kind of like muddy that up. But also like if you're coming back to the perplexity example, they're trying to build computer use, right? So they are effectively big sandbox. So no wonder they're pushing that narrative. And also you gotta like, this is for the audience, like you should see who the author of these opinions are and see what's their stake in it being good or not, right? Obviously, if you're building a perplexity computer, you want CLIs to be dominant, you know? I'm not sure who actually wants MCP to be dominant. Just people who like it. I don't know.
And David from Century.
David,
I don't know.
probably.
I don't know. He seems to like MCP. So Anthropic, every week is ship week at Anthropic. They just ship a lot of things all the time. So 1 million context window is generally available for Opus 4.6. Tons of improvements. Yeah, that this is, I guess, the same thing, but just. And the one thing that I did find was interesting is their context window does, again, needle in the haystack's a terrible eval, terrible metric, terrible benchmark, but it does do way better than like the GPT models at this like needle in the haystack kind of thing. So that's interesting. You know, like Codex has a huge context window as well, or maybe it was 5.4, but it doesn't always match a needle in the haystack type benchmarks.
Seems like they
very
are
well.
trying to improve memory by. Okay, two takes here. They're trying to improve memory in like these longer windows, which is cool. But they also want you to spend the tokens, right? They want you to do it. So once again, just think about what are their motives?
Yeah.
You know, what are the motives here?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you could send unlimited tokens and it was it was fast and it was cheap, you would do it. But there's always a trade-off. The more tokens means slower. Of course, you can like some of this can be prompt cache and speed things up, can make things cheaper. But there is a cost of how many tokens you send. They're in the business of making you pay for more tokens. Claude Code added a /BTW. Use it to have sidechain conversations while Claude is working. I think this is kind of a cool, useful idea. I mean, it's just simple. I've noticed like when I am using superset with Mastra code quite a bit lately. Still use conductor a bit, but I've been using a lot more superset and Mastra code. And there's often times I want to like keep track of like where I was at, like just add notes to myself or like have like keep track of certain things that are off the main conversations. Like, oh, this is where I left off. This is what I need to do next. I think it's like this feature is kind of interesting. All right, I'm gonna tee this one up for you.
Okay.
We had this whole segment on Verce versus Cloudflare last week, right? Or maybe it was 2 weeks
2
ago.
weeks ago, yeah.
And the drama just keeps continuing. I don't know why they hate each other so much, but I guess we went through it. But this is a really long article by the CTO of Verce. And so give us a little backstory here. What's Just Bash? What's the beef?
So Just Bash is a Bash implementation in TypeScript. It was written during the Opus Christmas days. And if anyone doesn't remember, during that time, you get 2x usage, and Opus 4.5 came out, which I would believe, and I think many people do, which was like the next step change happened during this period. You had the coupling of Opus being really good, as well as you get the more. I think it was unlimited usage or something like that, or 2x usage. So people had a lot of different pet projects. I built Wit during that time, and Malta built Just Bash. And Just Bash is just TypeScript implementation. You can give it to your agent. Almost like before this, I mean, coding agents were already crazy, but like now you can just equip your coding agent with a nice Bash tool and then use it. So then 2 weeks ago, we had the big drama with vNext, which is Cloudflare liberation of people. That's their words, liberation of people using Next.js. You can use this alternative. that runs well on Cloudflare, and it uses Vite, which caused so much drama. Obviously, Guillermo and both sides were beefing on Twitter about security vulnerabilities and all this BS. So then, a friend of ours, Sunil, which, it's not even a big deal, but he forked Just Bash and he played around with it, republished it under the Cloudflare org and an experimental thing, mainly because he was just trying some stuff out. And that kind of caused this next kind of thing. So,
Yeah, I mean, I
yeah,
think, like, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think what I understood is that Just Bash needs a node environment, and maybe
correct.
Sunil wanted it to run on on the edge, right? So it can't run node, and
Exactly.
so I think he was trying to take it and kind of, Frankenstein it to work, right? And figure out like how can we get this thing to run in a non-node environment. But I do think that, um, you know, it's open source. There's nothing wrong with that, right? That's the whole beauty of open source is you can fork something and run it, do whatever you want with it. Otherwise, what's open source? What's the point of it? I think Malte's beef here is that he's kind of thought, well, you shouldn't open source something that is so experimental, just contribute back to it, which I typically agree with. But I do think that him like posting this was a little like, a little over the top, in my opinion.
Yeah, like he went on the attack before understanding intent. And if anyone knows Neil, he's like one of the nicest people ever.
Yeah.
It's definitely not that.
And Abby, I think you're running into some Wi-Fi issues with the conference Wi-Fi is not holding up, which should be
Yeah.
a surprise to nobody.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then Guillermo,
like a refresh or something.
yeah. Why don't you refresh, come back? I'll fill the air live while you do that.
Okay.
So
Okay.
then Cloudflare or Guillermo kind of chimed in, and I can see both sides of some of this, but I feel like Verce definitely went on the attack a bit. Probably as they're probably a bit hot after the whole VNext thing, and so they were maybe looking for reasons, right? It's a game of like who can point the finger at the other person. And
Yeah.
so, we've talked about this a lot. We don't need to talk about it anymore. I think the thing that is interesting is a lot of this stuff probably wouldn't have been like this whole idea of like forking and reusing something is just so much easier now. So I think we are going to see more of this. I think in the age of like AI tools where you can actually write code a lot faster, we're going to like, the question is like, how does this impact open source projects? Do people just, if they want the feature, did they just fork it rather than try to contribute back because it's just easier? Now they can just take ownership of something and they think that with AI, they can maintain it a bit. So I think that's where it gets kind of interesting is like, how does it actually change how open source is managed and maintained? All right, agents in the physical world. So Ramp launched Ramp agent cards. So there's been no safe way for agents to spend money until now. Ramp agent cards give agents the ability to spend, governed with real spend limits, merchant controls, and full visibility into every transaction. So this is, we talked about auth for agents in the last segment of the live stream, if you were watching that. This is payments for agents. And a lot of different teams have been trying to figure this out from, Stripe and Shopify. But Ramp's trying to play their part in saying you can just give agents cards. The nice thing I do like about this is you can very well define what the agent should be able to spend on, what types of transactions, how much, all those things. And so it's not really that much different than, if I had another person on my team and I only wanted to give them a small budget, I could do that in Ramp. But I guess this is a bit more purpose-built for agents. So I think it's pretty cool. Perplexity announced personal computer. Now, I know Abby's having some internet issues, so he's not here, But one of the things we were talking about is, do you actually get does the Mac Mini come with it, or do you have to buy that separate? It wasn't actually clear from the ad. So if you know, let us know. But personal computers from Perplexity is an always-on local merge with Complexity computer that works for you 24/7. It's personal, secure, and works across your files, apps, and sessions through a continuously running Mac Mini. So basically, you're just running Perplexity or personal computer on a Mac Mini. So I think this is very much Perplexity's attempt to capitalize on the OpenClaw craze, where everyone was really excited, got a lot of attention, and this is their way to say, look, this is a safe, you know, and you notice that they say secure. That's one of the things that OpenClaw is arguably most noted. A bit of notoriety from OpenClaw is like the security. Of course, they've improved a lot of it, but I think people still think, how secure is it? They're not sure. So I think Perplexity is leaning into this is the more secure and personal way to do it. Resend launched Resend CLI. We were just talking about how there is been a lot of, is MCP dead, or should you just use CLIs? Resend has their CLI that they just launched, a bunch of commands. It's open source. We talked last week about Google's Workspace CLI. A lot of teams, Mastra included, were working on improving CLIs, making sure your agent can run CLIs really well, because there is a pattern that we're seeing more and more. People want to run an agent in a sandbox, give them just local tools in their local environment, and let them run the CLI themselves. So if you give them the documentation and they can auth into it, they can just run the CLI commands. So I think we've seen a few examples. We're going to continue seeing more examples of this, I think, throughout this year. We use PMPM over here on the Mastra monorepo, and so we also use Git work trees, and we're using tools like Conductor and Superset to manage these work trees. But one of the problems with that is you always have to do PMPM install the node modules, rerun builds. So I do think that this can help you share dependencies across your node modules or across your work trees, so you don't have to necessarily go through that long install process. So this is not fully out yet. It's unreleased. But if you are using monorepos and PMPM, I think you might like this. I know we're looking forward to it. OpenAI has essentially put a computer environment behind the responses API. So this article from OpenAI says, from model to agent, equipping the responses API with a computer environment. If you watched our end of year show at the end of, this is now 3 months ago, we talked about, we think we're going to start seeing more and more functionality be pushed behind the API, whether it's the model labs adding tools like deep research and things like that, or now adding a computer environment, or even people building agents pushing more functionality behind the API of the agent itself. And I think this is, when sandbox is another thing, like does your agent have access to run in a sandbox? Can it run its own tools in the sandbox? So I think more of this functionality is getting pushed behind the API, and the model providers are going to be the leaders in that. And this is one example. So it's the idea that you can hit the responses API, but there's a computer environment on the other side of that API. Now we're going to go through these developer insights section pretty quick. But I will just say, if you're looking for some deeper reading, if you want to learn a bit more, you can find the show notes, click through on these articles or these tweets, and you can definitely get in more depth than we're going to be able to get to here. So Sunil, we mentioned Sunil earlier. He had a great post a couple days ago on, really about sandboxes, and really it comes down to like generative UI, how it's not everyone's going to interact with just a chat interface. There is still room for UI, but maybe how you generate that UI is going to be, it's not the same. Maybe not everyone has the same UI, and sandboxes and LLMs are going to potentially play a part of that. So LLMs can write code. Maybe they can generate user interfaces for users. So my interface might be able to be generated based on what I need, and yours could be as well. And so this is a pretty good article. I think we've all started to see different takes around this, like generative UI, or I've referred to it in the past as like adaptive UIs, where not everyone's going to see the same thing. The chat interface is not the end destination. I think it'll be an important part, but I think there's way more to it than that. And we're just starting to see more and more examples of how that's going to play out. So Elliot Arledge had this post called the RL Environment Business. And this one was interesting to me because I kept hearing this topic come up with people that I know that are in RL, and also just being in San Francisco, is that there's this kind of this hidden environment, or this RL environment business, where these small companies are essentially creating RL environments and selling them to the model labs. And they're making a ton of money. There's only so many buyers, right, for this kind of business. There's the large model labs like Anthropic, OpenAI, Google, whatever, maybe Meta. And if you can build an RL environment for a specific niche, you can actually essentially sell that to the model labs, and the model labs will pay a lot of money because they didn't have to hire in the expertise to craft and create that environment. So this is if you want to kind of understand some of the business that's happening behind the scenes with some of these model labs, and like how they're getting this data, how they're creating data and then training these models and improving specific types of scores on their benchmarks, this is an interesting read. So take a look at that, read it. It's not that long of a read either, and it's pretty compelling. So this is a post in kind of response for Andrej Karpathy's auto research post, which was, a while back. Seems like a long time ago, but I think it was only like 10 days, maybe a weekend, 2 weekends ago. But this is introducing auto context, a recursive self-improving harness designed to help your agents and future iterations of those agents succeed on any task. So Jay had built this for clients with the intention of commercializing it, but then when saw the community support around Karpathy's auto research, decided to open source it instead. And I think we're starting to see, like, what is this? How does this look if the agents can do its own research and then contextualize that into actually learning? So it all comes down to like, what are the methods to get the agent to teach itself or to learn on its own? And there's a bunch of different approaches. A lot of people are trying to solve this problem from different angles. We have RL. We just talked about RL. RL is an important part of that. This auto research from Karpathy is an interesting approach as well to like, how do you get the LLM or to actually like improve itself? And I think this is another example. I don't know where it's all leading, but I do feel like there's going to be a ton, because once you figure this out, like once there's common patterns for this, and I don't think it might just not be one pattern, but there might be a few. Once you figure this out, it becomes so much easier for you to turn an agent or an LLM into an expert on whatever topics you need it to, because it can essentially train itself. It can do the work to get better. So I think this is something that we'll be hearing a lot more about throughout the next 6 months. So Kimmy from Kimmy Moonshot, introducing attention residuals, rethinking depthwise aggregation. I'd be lying if I say that I read this whole thing or understand it all, but it's impressive in that they're essentially able to, and I'll read the post and I'll explain my understanding of it, but I'd encourage you, if you're interested in reading white papers, there's the full report on GitHub. You can see this link here from Kimmy Moonshot. You can find it. So residual connections have long relied on fixed uniform accumulation. Inspired by the duality of time and depth, we introduce attention residuals, replacing standard depth-wise reoccurrence with learned input-dependent attention over preceding layers. So this enables networks to selectively retrieve past representations, naturally mitigating dilution and hidden state growth. Introduces block attention res, partitioning layers into compressed blocks to make cross-layer attention practical at scale, serves as an efficient drop-in replacement, demonstrating a 1.25x compute advantage with negligible inference latency overhead, and then it validated on the Kimmy linear architecture. So essentially, like if you're familiar with how the attention layer works, this is essentially allows it to like communicate to preceding layers and learn from that. And I would encourage you to read it. I'm going to spend a bit more time on it and hopefully pick up some more knowledge of how the underlying infrastructure of all these LLMs works. All right, we're going to hit the quick hits. I think we lost Abby. He's at the conference. We'll wish him well and hope that his demo goes well, but I'll continue on with the news without him. And we do have a comment asking if Abby's going to open source his GTC agent that he demoed earlier today. I think he will. Like, I'll talk to him, but yeah, I imagine he's going to open source that thing if you want to get access to it. All right, some quick hits. We'll go through this quickly. So Replit introduced Replit Agent 4. They also raised a bunch of money too, but this was out from Amjad last week, and I think we talked to, what didn't feel like that long ago, maybe 4 or 5 months ago when Agent 3 came out, and now Agent 4 is out. And Replit is making a lot of moves. They raise a ton of capital. They're investing in trying to make their agent even better at a bunch of different types of tasks, not just building apps or web apps or even mobile apps, but across animation, design, all this other types of creative work. Manus had a release. This came out today. So we're taking Manus out of the cloud and putting it in your desktop. Introducing My Computer, the core feature of the new Manus desktop app. It's your AI agent now on your local machine. It's amazing to me what OpenClaw has done. Perplexity Computer, Manus, My Computer. OpenClaw has kind of turned this thing into, I think, just tapping into people's want to run this stuff locally and out of the cloud and in their own personal environments. And now, just more and more teams are starting to like pile on to this idea. So it's kind of wild how one open source project stirred these large organizations to like follow suit so quickly. And speaking of, now we have NemoClaw, which is NVIDIA's OpenClaw type competitor. So NVIDIA's new open source AI agent platform for enterprises. Everything you need to know ahead of its GTC 2026 debut. So we'll ask Abby about this next week if he saw more and learned more about NemoClaw. But you can go to nemoclaw.so, read up about it, and it seems like it's a bit more like the secure enterprise version of OpenClaw. LLM Mock was something that came onto our radar last week, and this is by our friends over at Copilot Kit, who we're going to have on the show here in the next couple weeks. I got to figure out exactly what date, but they're coming on the show to talk about it. Well, I'm sure we'll ask them about this. And if you ever had to like mock LLM responses because you don't want to pay the tokens and you just want to make sure that the tests work, but you need like a realistic LLM response, you can use this tool, and it is a real HTTP server, real SSE streams, WebSocket APIs. So you can essentially like mock OpenAI, Claude, Gemini calls, and that way you can more quickly, you can make sure everything works, but you don't have to actually make the call itself. HydraDB just announced they raised a bunch of money to kill vector DBs. And I think the interesting thing here is they say that they're using ontology first context graph over your data. So it's more of a graph DB approach. I think there's been a lot of talk around, GraphRag and graph DBs. So I think there's now some money getting moved in that direction. We'll see if it becomes more popular, but I have been hearing more about people saying that, the graph interface is the right way to like traverse data. It's better than, just semantic search with embeddings. I think there's some truth to that, but I do think it's more nuanced than that. This was pretty cool. Google Maps is getting its biggest upgrade in over a decade. By combining our Gemini models with a deep understanding of the world, Maps now unlocks entirely new possibilities for how you navigate and explore. So Google is starting to use Gemini across its product suites. You've obviously seen all the things they've been adding to the Gemini app, and now it's even other products at Google, like Google Maps, is getting Gemini injected into the product. Z.ai, so ZAI introduced GLM5 Turbo, a high-speed variant of GLM5, excellent in agent-driven environments such as OpenClaw. So another, people trying to capitalize on the OpenClaw hype. It kind of reminds me of like the Codex Fast model, right? Is they have a faster version. They want you to be able to get faster results. And so it's a high-speed variant of GLM5. And that's it. That's the show for today. I know we had a few technical hiccups with Abby being remote at the conference, but hopefully you got your fix. You're keeping up with all the AI news. If this is the first time you've listened, thank you for watching or listening to Agents Hour. Give us that 5-star review. Please go to Spotify right now if you have Spotify and just subscribe, follow the show. That helps us get in front of more people. So we really appreciate that. Or if Apple Podcasts is your thing, go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe to the show, even if you do watch the video on YouTube. We do appreciate that. And subscribe on YouTube. Tell your friends. We appreciate all the help. We will see you. We're here every week, Monday, usually noon Pacific time. Sometimes we start a little late. But if you're watching this thing live, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week. Goodbye. We'll see you next time, everybody.
Yeah. Yo, that show's a wrap. We were live in the zone. AI Agents Hour Shane and Abby on the throne. Did you give us that review? Only if it's a 5. Jump on the tube, make sure to like and subscribe. Yeah, news so fresh, yeah, we keep you in the loop. Guests so fly, they bring the whole troop. AI on the rise, don't miss this power. Welcome to the show, it's AI Agents Hour. Did you just drop in? Is this your first time? Make sure to follow us on X and go like and subscribe. Yeah, learn the principles and patterns in our books. The Mastra.ai site, give it a look. Yeah, news so fresh, yeah, we keep you in the loop. Guests so fly, they bring the whole troop. AI on the rise, don't miss this power. Welcome to the show, it's AI Agents Hour. This is the end, we all wrapped up. Another showdown, another one coming up. AI Agents Hour's done, but the news doesn't cease. Shane and Abby, we out of here. Peace.